Welcome to literary and jury charge practice. Let's start out with a little jury charge warm-up. And the subject of this jury charge is rules of evidence. Ready? Here we go. You may also consider a witness's manner of testifying on examination, the character of his or her testimony, the bias or prejudice, if any, the interest or absence of interest in the suit, the degree of intelligence, the recollection, whether good or bad, clear or indistinct, concerning the facts testified to, the inclination or motives, together with the opportunity the witness had to know the facts thereof, he or she may have spoken. I know there were some tough words in that one and that little section. Let me look at some of the words. Maybe you might want to consider writing them on your challenging word list if you're keeping one. Let's see, we had prejudice, intelligence, indistinct, inclination, So again, some words you may want to add to your challenging word list and practice those a little more when you have a chance. All right, we'll get back to that jury charge. For now, let's practice this narrative answer. Ready? Here we go. I was driving down the highway on my way to work. I travel that road every day. There was nothing unusual about the day in question, except, unfortunately, it was the day the defendant hit my car. I would say I was going approximately 55. I know everyone always says that, but it's the truth. I was going the speed limit. I rarely speed. Maybe if I'm late, I might go 57 or 58. Ask anyone who knows me. They'll tell you too. My best friends make fun of me and tell me that I drive like an old woman. I have never even gotten a ticket in my life. I try to do the right thing, but he hit me, and now my car is totaled. All right, this next literary is called State Review. So it's basically focusing on different states in the United States. All right, here we go. I was born in Arkansas, my brother in Tennessee, my sister in North Carolina, and my mother and father in Michigan and Minnesota. My parents met in Georgia and got married in South Carolina. They first lived in Kentucky, but then they moved to Texas. We lived in Iowa, Louisiana, and Mississippi. When I was 10, I visited my aunt in Virginia. The following summer, I went to camp in West Virginia. My brother and sister stayed with our grandparents in Ohio. When I was 12, my parents took us to Connecticut during the fall when we saw the leaves turn color. We were in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island also. When I was 16, I worked for a company in New Jersey. This company bought parts in Oregon, Pennsylvania, Utah, and Wisconsin. The products were sold in North Dakota, South Dakota, Maryland, and Vermont. The company sent sales representatives to New Mexico, Nevada, Colorado, and Iowa. I graduated from school in Washington. My first job was in Arizona. The company I worked for had main offices in Florida and California. There were also offices in New Mexico, Maine, Alabama, and Delaware. Eventually, I moved to New York, where I lived for 4 years. Then I took a vacation in Hawaii. I returned, but had to take a flight that made stops in Kansas and Nebraska. During my absence, my employer had gotten accounts in Alaska, Missouri, and Iowa, and I was very happy to hear it. My sister moved to Montana, and my brother moved to Oklahoma. The following year, I moved to Illinois. That didn't suit me, so then I tried Idaho and Wyoming and found that I really liked the atmosphere in the West. I particularly liked the feeling in Montana and the northern part of Wyoming around Cody and Sheridan. All right, let's get back to our jury charge. We'll read a little small section of that. Ready? Here we go. Discrepancies in a witness's testimony or between his testimony and that of others, if there were any, do not necessarily mean that the witness should be discredited. Failure of recollection is a common experience. Two persons witnessing an incident or a transaction often will see or hear it differently. Whether a discrepancy pertains to a fact of importance or only to a trivial detail should be considered in weighing its significance. A witness, as I mentioned a moment ago, is presumed to speak the truth. This presumption, however, may be repelled by the manner in which he or she testifies, by the character of his or her testimony, by his or her motives, or by contradictory evidence. All right, let's try this opening statement. Ready? Here we go. We are trying to fit all of our puzzle pieces together in a logical manner. It is just as if you are building a puzzle by referring to the cover of the box. We know what the end photo looks like, and we have the pieces, so we need to fit them in place. First of all, oil did burn during the course of this fire. There was some amount of oil that was burned as fuel to feed the fire. Both parties admit to the burning of the oil, but they do not concur as to when the burning began. One party contends that ignition occurred right at the very outset, and that is what caused the fire. We contend that ignition was caused by a smaller fire that was already going. The oil was what made the fire difficult to put out. Let's try a little bit more from our jury charge, just a small section, a little bit of practice. And again, our subject, let me get back to the beginning, is rules of evidence. Ready? Here we go. If any witness examined before you has willfully sworn falsely as to any material matter, you may distrust his or her entire testimony. That is, being convinced that a witness has stated what is untrue, not as the result of a mistake or inadvertence, but willfully and with a design to deceive. You should treat all of such witnesses' testimony with distrust and suspicion, and you may reject it all unless you shall be convinced that the witness in other particulars has testified to the truth. We have another short narrative answer. Ready? Here we go. I would be lying if I said her drinking didn't cause me to leave her. I know she loved the children, but I couldn't stand it any longer. I would come home after working and she would be drunk, and the kids always seemed to be afraid. They knew a fight would begin, or that they would have to help me put her to bed. I had to get them away from her. I didn't want any child of mine to get hurt like that. I want the very best for them. Life is hard enough. Why make it harder for them by keeping them in an environment like that? She can fight to keep them, but she won't win. I do not believe that a judge with any compassion would give them to her. I don't mind if she sees them and tries to build as normal a relationship with them as possible, but I will never let her have them. I just want her to get better. I just want her to be well again and be the woman I used to know. I hope she will get help. She knows that her problem is ruining 4 lives. All right, that will conclude our literary and jury charge practice.